Let's bring in somebody we haven't seen for a long time in person. What's up?
Bradley.
Bradley. What's up, Bradley?
Howdy, folks. How's it
It's
going?
like Brad.
Brad
Brad's gonna
Kiger,
call
the
you Nicholas
man, the
now.
myth.
Yeah,
How's it going, Brad?
it's
So
fantastic. Hope y'all are well.
let's jump into it. Brad's a seasoned real estate agent. He's seasoned in real estate and renovations with nearly a decade of experience. Brad started his career in Arlington, Virginia in 2015. But then 2020, he returned back to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where he's since transformed over 100 properties, turning outdated spaces into stunning modern showpieces. His vision is to deliver exceptional results that exceed client expectations, making him a trusted name in the renovations industry. And you ensure a streamlined and stress-free renovation process for his clients, supported by his highly trained team and superior customer service. So we're going to talk about real estate investing, I would assume, right, Brad?
I think we should talk about some real estate investing. Yeah, so I
All right,
appreciate
cool,
the
man. Let's do
warm.
it. I think we should.
I think so. Um, so yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I always love seeing you, even if it's not in person. Appreciate what you guys do for the real estate community as a whole. So appreciate you guys a lot. Yeah, so kind of a short rundown is I was in retail real estate, did pretty good in Arlington, Virginia, and then we had a kid and we wanted to move back to Winston-Salem, so that's what we did. Um, and when you sell $1 million house, you get a nice commission, and when you sell a $200,000 house, you don't. So I was looking at this business again, like how I'm gonna have to sell 500 homes, and it's so. I kind of fell into investing. I kind of knew a good amount about renovations from being in DC. I worked for Renovate Now, Pay at Closing company. I was like their pilot agent called Curbio. And so I started offering that service for my listings. And then, I found a property that wasn't on the market. The guy didn't want to list it. And I ended up purchasing it. So, and that kind of opened up the the investment side. And I've got 26 rentals now.
Hey,
We
all in your neck of the woods or out of the state or where?
all in Winston. Yeah. All in Winston-Salem or surrounding area. Within probably a 30-minute radius. There's a couple neighborhoods that I really like. And so I kind of try to focus in there pretty well. And
20.
so we run Airbnb.
How many rentals, Brad?
20. Well, we just sold 26.
26. How long did it take you to accumulate 26? Because I remember when you were
I remember when
just
Brad
real
bought
estate.
his. I remember when Brad was yay high and bought his
Yeah, I
first.
remember when he was like just
Yeah,
came up to my
yeah, and
shoulder.
bought his first when he bought his first investment.
Yeah, it was 2021 was the first one that I held.
Dang, dude.
Yeah.
That wasn't that long
Pretty
ago.
fun ride. Yeah, I mean it's crazy to think that was 4 years ago because it feels not that long ago.
No.
But yeah, that was kind of early on. I really wanted to get into. I really didn't want to flip houses per se. I really wanted to get into owning rentals and building that up. And then kind of the market changed as far as interest rates and prices shot up, and so I pretty much am more on the flip development side now. I'll hold a couple as they come across, but that's basically my main focus now. And the biggest question that I always get is a lot of real estate agents is like, how do you find off market properties, right? Like, how do you find, because for me, like as a part owner in a real estate retail real estate firm, and then having an investment company, I feel like they run hand in hand. So if you want me to, I can dive into kind of what our marketing
Yes.
pillars are. Okay, cool. So one that you're basically looking for the FSBOs and the expires of the investment world, right? Which are foreclosure, pre-foreclosure homes, probate, estate, where someone inherits a property, they don't want to deal with it. connecting with attorneys as far as like divorce attorneys, just people going through, any type of situation that, can make them more likely to sell, kind of like an expired or FSBO. And so we basically put them into ponds, and, we call to them, we mail to them. If they're in our like specific area, we drop by and drop a packet of information off. So that's kind of number one. And then as we get into the more of the marketing list, we've tried to pick out like target farms, like, so in retail real estate, if you wanted to farm a neighborhood, what would you do? Right. You would, try to pick up open houses in the neighborhood. You would mail to them, you go knock on their doors, introduce yourself. So we kind of have those farms, but they're a little bit different. We have an area of homes, like an area that we target. And then from there, we try to weed out like 50% of the owners that we don't think are going to be, investor sellers. So, anyone that's bought in the last like 3-4 years, 5 years, because, we're looking for folks with equity, right? 10+ year ownership's good, 50% equity. We separate absentees into out of state and in state. And then we separate, I don't get too much in the weeds, but just, then we separate it out as far as if they have multiple properties, if they have one property, because, I would much rather buy a package of 6 to 8 than have to buy 8 individually.
All right. So Brad, let's do a couple of things here. One, you probably have a few people here that have never done it, and then you have a set that have. So you now have been in this for about 4 years, but I feel like you've grown really fast, and you've made some amazing mistakes that have helped you now be better. What would you say for us we would need to avoid in finding these and closing them? What are those things that you can say, hey, you don't do this, do this?
I would say, I would stay away from like blanket marketing if you're really looking for investment properties, because the fact of the matter is 10 to 20%, really 10% of homeowners that are sellers, not even homeowners. So, in a neighborhood that turns over at 10%, you're looking for the 1% that are going to sell to an investor. So if I were to restart, if I was going to push the button again and restart doing it, I would do research in my own market. I'd figure out those price points that are probably 30 to 60% under the median. So if you're in a $500,000 price point, I would try to look for the $200,000 to $400,000 properties. Figure out where those neighborhoods are. Look for neighborhoods that are, transitioning, up and coming. And then, what I did in the beginning is I'd just go ride around and look for houses. I'd look for, overgrown bushes. I'd look for, just as they call it, driving for dollars, right? I'd go around and then I'd carry
it's actually good driving for dollars.
Yeah. So I'd carry a stack of, and I still do it. I mean, I still keep them in my car, and I'll ride. Like, I never take the same route twice unless I really got to be somewhere. So, I try to cut through neighborhoods. I try to take different roads and kind of meander my way around, and just kind of keep, it's 20-mile-an-hour zone. So I just take it nice and slow and just kind of look around and see kind of what's going on. But yeah, I'd put the flyers out, knock on the door, just introduce myself. At the time I said, hey, my name's Brad Kiger. I'm an agent investor. If you're looking to, list your home, we have concierge listing services. We have a renovate now, pay at closing. And if you're looking for a cash offer and you don't want to go through all that, I buy properties for cash too. So if you guys ever need anything, just here's my flyer and take care.
So really quick pause, because some people are like, well, I don't have all cash, right? How do you do this? So tell us about the company that you use to bring in to purchase cash. How does this all work, Brad?
All right. So I would say, that's why I kind of started out with the marketing side of it, because if you can't find the deals, then it doesn't matter how much cash you have. Right.
Yeah, it's true.
Right.
Yeah. So in my mind, and I didn't create this. I mean, I heard this from Gary Keller 3 or 4 years ago. The money is in finding the properties and being in the deal, because once you have the deal, then you can go
Yeah.
find the money. You can figure out what to do with it, because it's like he was riding. He's like, he told a story about 10 or 15 years ago. This guitar player that he was buddies with was riding in his truck, and I might get some of the details wrong, but basically he's riding.
I remember this, Brad. I'll correct
Yeah.
you. I remember.
Yeah. So Gary picks him up in his truck, and the guy's just kind of like complaining about how he needs to find money. He doesn't have any money, and that's why he's not in real estate. And Gary said something to the tune of like, well, wouldn't it be great if you just rode around town with a billionaire? You know, it was like something to that effect. Like, hey, dude, you can find the money. Like, it's out there. And so, like, my very first deal that I did was essentially a JV deal where I found the deal, and I was scared to go into it myself, honestly. So I found a buddy of mine, and I said, hey, do you want to invest in this house with me? And I'll do all the work. I'll renovate it, but you put up the money for it, and then we'll split the profit. And I called about 5 or 6 people before I found one that was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I probably have done 20 of those partnership deals, especially on bigger packages, where you bring in other people's money, give them a percentage of the equity, and then you're not, either if you don't have the money or you don't want to risk your own money going that route. Another good one is, just hard money is pretty accessible. It's 90% down, and then they'll put up 100% of the rehab. So as long as you got 10%, 15% of your own funds, you can borrow hard money, which is basically a shorter term loan. So they'll loan for a year or 2 years, a higher interest rate, usually anywhere from 10 to 14%. So you got to kind of calculate that, all that in when you're making your offer, if you're going to go that route.
Have you ever done an FHA, a 203K?
No, I haven't, but so I had a buyer client that did one in DC actually, in like 2018, 2019. And that was awesome. I mean, they put 3.5% down. They hired the GC and they funded it and rolled through, but I've never done one personally. No.
That could be a good way for some agents to start, because very, very low barrier to entry, FHA backed.
Yeah.
I think it's very important for people to understand, like, the money is the easy part.
I totally agree. I mean, I've never had a deal that I couldn't figure out what to do with it ever.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, everybody knows someone who has money. Not having the money isn't the reason why you can't get it done. Because if you have the deal, you'll find the money.
Yeah. No, it's very true. And I don't do a lot of wholesaling. I know everyone's, it's a taboo word from some people, but at the end of the day, you should be able to find that buyer if you don't have the cash, if you have a good enough deal. And as long as you're upfront, like for me, as long as you're upfront with the seller, hey, I'm going to either buy this property from you, or I'm going to bring in one of my investor partners and we're going to purchase the property, and so they don't, and I've probably done a handful out of probably 130 that I've done, but it's been kind of in that way.
Well, there's some good questions here, Brad.
Let's fire them out.
Why do you separate the absentee owners since they're good candidates to sell?
Well, because they're not, they don't live in the property, right? So, it's harder for you to move. It's less likely that you're going to sell your personal home versus if you have 8 rental properties, you're probably more likely to sell the troubled rental, the one that's been causing you problems for a couple of years. You haven't been able to get a good tenant. So that's why the absentees and the vacants, vacant property and absentee owners. But again, they get, they're getting solicited a lot by investors. So, they're kind of that's why I kind of refer to them like the expires and FSBOs. So you got to be, a lot of follow up and be good with them.
Got it. What platforms do you use to locate these?
PropStream is a good resource. I think it's like $100 a month. You can filter, there's a lot of filters that you can kind of run down by zip code, absentee, owner occupied, equity position,
I think
tax
we got a discount on
liens.
that. Case, I know
Yeah,
you're
I
on.
think you do.
Put up a link to PropStream when you have a chance so people can take a look at that one. Anything
Yeah.
else you use, Brad, besides PropStream and your car driving around town?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like tools like that, yeah, I mean, that's, I'm not really, I'm a little bit old school. Like I go to the courthouses and flip through the foreclosures, and so um, I don't use a whole lot of tech, if you will, to kind of find these things out. It's been kind of trial and error of just kind of playing around and sending out 300 mailers, you know, um, and figuring out kind of which list are, and if you really think about it, and if you sat down and were like, okay, like I'm looking for somewhat of distressed properties, like either the situation is distressed or the property is distressed. Like usually someone doesn't live in a property for 2 years and then it's in that situation, right? So like length of ownership, and of course like absentee owners, like if you live in your home, you generally take better care of it than
Mhm.
what a tenant would, so just kind of looking through those parameters and kind of playing with them to find your marketing list.
Any recommendations are on hard money lenders?
Yeah, there's a national company, Kiavi. It's Kiavi. Um, and if you really want to get into, how can you find these resources, right? I guarantee in every market there is some sort of investor or agent investor meetup group, and you go to those meetings and you network. And even if you've never done a deal, and if you're an agent and you're just thinking about it, that's where I mean, you can start there and say, and then somebody will get up and say, hey, I'm a local, because there's local hard money lenders. They're not just national. It's a guy that's got 2 or 3 million bucks that's wanting to lend it out at 14%. Which is, I think, the American dream, right? Get
Yeah.
so yeah, and you'll find the lenders. You'll network with the wholesalers. You'll find the other investors, and maybe build a relationship where the investor now is listing his properties with you. So there's a lot. I think that a lot of agents overlook the investor side of the business as kind of like, well, investors don't want to work with agents, and in my experience, that's not
Mm.
true. Like I work with an agent on every deal. So
Did COVID play a role in your property acquisition or not paying rent?
no, so well, a lot of mine are short-term rentals and mid-term rentals, and then the long-term rentals that I had. Um, Luckily, I didn't have any COVID payment issues, but yeah, I mean, I would say that COVID, I mean, it helped more than anything because the interest rates were as far as real estate goes, not the
Yeah.
world, but as far as we're talking about this, the interest rates were super low, property values were going up. You would buy a property and 6 months later it'd be worth 10 or 15% more. It was a good time to be in the exchange business of real estate. So yeah, you can make a lot of mistakes then that you can't make now.
Yeah, that's true. Generally, what percentage do you give the money? Do you give money to the person you mentioned? Generally, what percentage do you give the money person you mentioned?
Yeah. So if you can't work out like a, hey, interest or whatever, then I would say, especially if you're newer to it, I would say split it 50-50, because it's pretty much a 50-50 deal. Like you find the deal, you handle the rehab,
Hmm.
and then they put up all the cash.
Yep.
So, and after you do 2 or 3 with that person, say, hey, try to renegotiate 60-40, 70-30, but I think 50-50 is pretty fair for the first couple of to build the trust with that person to keep moving forward.
Makes sense, man. Makes sense. All right, another question here. What are the top three categories of sellers that you target? That's a great question.
Yeah, I love that question. Foreclosure, pre-foreclosure, um, vacant properties, um, hmm. And then I would say the best way to find a deal is to go out there and look for it. Like boots on the ground, go look for it, because you drive around, you can see the homes that are, if they look bad on the outside, they look bad on the inside. And then
Mm,
I'll write the address
true.
down. I'll look it up, I'll look it up in the tax ID and see if it's an owner occupied or an absentee owner, mail them a letter, skip trace a phone number, give them a call. So it's kind of a, instead of trusting a computer or a general, how many years they lived in the house, absentee, those are all good indicators, but nothing is as good as laying your eyes on it, calling the person saying, hey, I rode by your house over on 123 Main Street. Why does everybody always say 123 Main Street? I've said that my
I
whole
don't
life.
know. I've changed it, dude. I'm like 456 Brilliant Street. That's what I call it.
Brilliant Street. Yeah, I'm just gonna say that's all right. I'm changing. So I checked out your house on 789 Brilliant Street. So yeah, and then it kind of connects in, or I'll knock on the door, hand them a flyer. I think that is number one. I think number one is that getting out there and getting your eyes on the neighborhoods, seeing the streets, seeing what's going on at the house, talking to the mailman as he's walking around. Building that little, yeah. So
that's good.
Talking with the neighbors as they're walking their dogs. It's
good one. I like that one. Yeah. All right. Good sources. Yep, Derek, you can find pre-foreclosures there. Usually, notice of defaults, list pendants. That's what we look for. Tina, for someone that has never done a flip, great question here. For somebody that's never done a flip, how will I know how much the rehab will truly cost? Do you have like an Excel sheet that you run things through? What do you do?
The short answer is you won't know. So if I were going to if I were in that position, I can walk through a house, I have a remodeling company also. So I can walk through a house and I know within $5,000 what it's going to cost to rehab it, roughly. As your contractor will when they walk through it with you. So what I would do is I would take the contractor over there with you and have them give you an estimate. Do a walkthrough at the house.
Boom,
have a contractor give you an estimate, and they'll look for cracks in the foundation, crawl space, or hey, that roof needs to be replaced. This HVAC's a little older. The kind of the things that you may not quite catch as a non-contractor.
Got it. And then last question is, where was it? Two of the same questions. Rhonda and Mo says, what do you use for skip trace? I think you still use PropStream, right? Because that does it as well.
It does it as well, yeah. So you can just pop them right through there. It's kind of a little one-stop shop. It's good to go.
Listen, PropStream, everyone does everything on the back end. It's crazy great. In fact,
it's wild.
It has so many tools, you will never use all of the tools ever.
Yeah.
When we looked at it, and I'm like, I don't use half of this or more than half of this stuff. It's powerful. Yeah. Use it. So this isn't the first time we've talked to Brad in Lab Coat Agents, everyone. We've talked to him probably 2 other times recently where he breaks down how he does it all. So if you're interested in this, Brad, how do people get a hold of you? Because we'll have you back on this as well. But how do people get a hold of you?
It's flipping_Brad on IG. I just dropped it in there, flipping_Brad. I put content on there. I've got, a video series on there of kind of some of this stuff. And, we do a 6-week course, if anybody's interested in doing something like that. If you want to just take a deep dive into the wild and wonderful world of
we do, flipping. Buddy. Brad, you put flipping_Brad. Is that it?
Yeah.
Or what's missing from that? That's it?
Sorry, that's IG. So at.
Oh, got it. Very good. Go find him on Instagram. Let me grab it.
Follow me. I'll follow you back. Love to connect. And I need to be better. You know how you go in those cycles on social media? It's like, I'm gonna nail this, and then you're like, I'm tired of this. I'm like, I need a break.
Yes. Yes. Let me grab it. Hold on. I just followed you, and I'm gonna grab that and put it here so everyone can see it.
Yeah.
I'm putting the link to Instagram there with the whole link. Follow him. Brad will return your message. We're going to bring him back. We would probably bring him back every 2 months just so he can go through everything. And if you want to join his 6-week course, I would highly suggest it. We've known him for a very long time. We trust him. He's a good guy. Brad, thanks for being on, man. I appreciate you.
Dude, thanks, Tristan. This is awesome, man. Appreciate everything y'all do.
Great job. Great job.
Thanks, man. See you, brother.